Hello, hello, and hello again, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Bakery, your premier bi-weekly Smash podcast that it's just never stopping. There's way too many players and way too many people out there for me to just shut up and not talk to them for at least 10 minutes or 20 minutes every other Monday. But today I am blessed, as we are every other Monday, but we are so blessed today. We get to be hanging out with one of Smash's grandparents at this point, or I think as the community nickname is the Smash ambassador, Mr. Winton Smith, aka Prog. Prog, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. So, real quick, for those that might not have ever heard of you, which would blow my mind entirely, if you've never heard of this man before, I don't know how you're a part of the scene, but a quick little, formal rundown. Who is Prog?
I'm pretty washed up. Former, I guess inactive, I'll say, instead of former. Inactive commentator, content creator, player. Basically, I've done it all at this point.
You really have. You've definitely been the jack of all trades in terms of Smash and the things it has to offer. Where exactly are you from? Because I know you resided in Tri-State for a while, and then you've kind of been all over a little bit. Where are you from? Where do you rep?
Born and raised Long Island, New York, 516. Went to college in Philly, where I first got into the Smash scene, and currently in Richmond, Virginia.
Nice. You enjoy it over there in Virginia?
When it's warm, yeah.
Does it get as cold as it does in New York? How does it get there?
It's not as bad usually. Usually I'd say maybe 10, 15 degrees warmer, but we've gotten our share of snow this winter.
I believe it. Snow has been actually crazy, getting massive amounts at the most random periods of time, but who knows? Are you a fan of snow? Do you appreciate it, or are you like me and you almost want to cry when you see it coming down?
Everyone that follows me on Twitter knows what happens when it snows. I'm not a fan.
Very, very true. If you guys don't follow him, at Progducto, but we'll get to the plugs at the end of the show. I guess where I'll start, as I do with everyone, is how long obviously talking back before you consider yourself retired, how long have you been a part of Smash as a community or as a part of it as the game?
Oh, man. God. At this point, maybe 12, 13 years.
Wow. And that's even when you picked it up casually, or are we not even speaking?
Not even talking casually. Casually, that had to be 2002, 2003 casually, and then got into the competitive scene 0506.
Wow. So what turned you onto the competitive scene? How did you get into it?
So Temple University, where I went to school, was walking around one day, and there was a sign for a Smash Brothers Melee tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Free for all, items on, the usual casual setup.
Yeah.
And it's sure, why not? See what's going on. End up getting fourth. But there was a player by the name of Imad. He was a Sheik main, lived in Philly for a while, and basically when during one of the matches we were in sudden death. He was playing Sheik. I was playing Nest at the time for some godforsaken reason. We ended up in a sudden death, and we traded. I hit him with an up air, he hit me with a back air. I still remember it to the day. He was dying off the top, star KO, I down at the side, so he moved on. But, he was doing things and moving so strange and erratically, and, I hadn't seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hit him up after the event was over, because, I stuck around just to, ask him about it. And he's like, oh yeah, it's called wave dashing. I used to go to tournaments in New York every so often for that. There's I can't even remember the tournament name at this point. It's going to bother me for the rest of the podcast now.
If it ever just comes up, just yell it.
But, it was, the old DA days with Wes, PC, Dave, so on and so forth. And he said, I go to tournaments up there, and, if you want to learn some stuff, definitely come through. So a couple of my friends who had come to the tournament with me, we ended up going to his apartment, and, we studied the game basically under him, and that's how we all got involved in the scene.
That's amazing. Now you bring up those other names, Wes and PC. How long? Well, actually, hold on. The first question I want to ask is, how old do you think you were at that time? Like, this is early college years, so somewhere between like probably 18 and 20, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I had to be 18, 19 at that point.
Gotcha. Okay, so now I have like an age range for it, and so at that time, now you're hearing about Wes and PC and those bigger names. At what point did you start getting to play with them and getting to talk to them a little bit more?
That wouldn't be for a while, actually. Just because, that semester, or probably, I feel like that was a fall tournament, so it would have been fall of 05. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't remember when, but it had to be 06, 07. Basically, we had been, the group of us that had been, learning Smash together, we wanted to branch out a bit and start going to events. And, we, of course, discovered Smash boards. Mm-hmm. And, we're looking for, local players, who's around. And a couple of these names, will ring a bell. But, Chiba Senpai was active. Pac-Man, the Luigi main, former teammate of Scar, was very active. But, of course, my first introduction, he invited us over to Drexel University, was Cactuar. Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
So it wouldn't be until, I think, maybe summer of 06 when I went back home to Long Island for the summer, met up with G-Money, Ryan K, Demon, SLH, a lot of the old Alejandro P, Jesus. A lot of, I'm going back in years, man. A lot of old New York players from Long Island who basically, as much as I had learned in Philly, I still had a lot to learn, and they showed that. But it was an amazing group to, I guess, kind of learn from.
That definitely sounds like that's a damn good squad to learn the game from. So after you had learned more about the game, were you someone that took notes like in the notepad? Were you someone that mentally retained everything? How did you go about really studying the game more? I also completely left out the subject of even studying Smash boards. How did you go about learning even more?
Well, I mean, there was that old saying that, East Coast players really wanted to study the game and how it worked. West Coast were, mostly about heart and trying to break down a player. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely, in that second category, even though I was on the East side. Mm-hmm. So, as much as, I looked at Smash boards and whatnot, I guess my whole prior experience in gaming prior to that was with Unreal Tournament. And a good portion of it was just, you're looking out for these certain ticks, what way does a player like to, dash? What are their habits? And me picking up on that was basically my main approach. But beyond that, I remember going to, a bunch of early tournaments, and I had my notebook with me. I remember asking Kirby Kaze for notes after we played at Realm 1. HPK, Lamb Chops, going from event to event, trying to just figure out, where I could, kind of improve what I was dropping, and then trying to apply that while trying to figure out, what makes this player tick and how to break them down. Mm.
And this was all during college years, or is this even going on after college?
A bit after college as well. I think I'm trying to remember what my last tournament that I entered was. It might have been Apex 2010, maybe? I don't know. I think it was Apex 2010 was the last tournament I entered.
Okay. And that's the point where you're You're getting all these notes. Now, this can actually transition us into what I want to talk about, and that's how you considered yourself as a player back in the day. So you're getting all these notes from these very solid players and getting all this training. How did you consider yourself as a player in these situations?
I'd say, it's definitely popular. No shame in saying it.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely a struggle for anyone in Tri-State at that time. When at one period of activity, you had Me Too King #1, J-Man, Hacks, Cactuar, Scar, Pac-Man, PC still being active, Van's still out here, Eggum, Rake, Spammer, HPK, Haz, Reno. You have a lot of people who, I guess, have, even when Chops came up, but a lot of people who have been kind of forgotten as time has gone on. Mm-hmm. But you also have, some bona fide legends of the game as well. So it was extremely difficult to, I guess, make a name for yourself. So, making, 9th or 13th at a local was, of course, no one wants to be 9th. It's a huge fall, especially, at that point when a huge tournament might have, 30 people.
Right.
But, when you consider how stacked those tournaments were, you couldn't be too upset.
No.
That said, I definitely had some rivalries that were, I guess, out of my wheelhouse, so to speak. I had a fun rivalry with Eggum for a while, Strict 9 before he broke out. Mm-hmm. Definitely had some troublesome matchups as well. But it was I was someone who could, make a run on a good day, but I wouldn't consider myself to be consistent by any means.
That's fair. And at this time, you played. What character did you play back then? I want to say Falco, but I feel like I might be wrong.
When I first started, I got into. I started as a dock main when I
Right.
really got into competitively, but then primarily moved into Falco and singles.
Okay, so I wasn't too wrong. I definitely thought I saw something with a dock, and in doing research, I saw you playing dock versus somebody, and I was like, why does this look real? So, okay, so you started as dock, became Falco, and so what? Eggum, Fox, Strict. God, I can't remember who Strict.
Falco as well.
Yup, that's right. And so back then, did you consider yourself maybe even like top 25 in like New York, or were you still just?
It's pretty easy to say top 25 in those days just because of how few players there were at that time period. I'd say maybe top 6 or 7 in Long Island at that point.
Oh, let's go.
Behind players like G Money, Ryan, so on and so forth.
Right.
But yeah, being top 25 in New York really wasn't enough for me. I wanted to be more than that. Never reached it as a player though. So,
did you ever? Well, this is like one of those dumb questions, but I feel like I'm gonna ask it anyway. Did you ever really want to though? Did you ever? Because what I'm gonna eventually lead into is the whole you started doing way more commentary, which obviously the community started loving so much, and still to this day everyone loves your commentary. But did you really want to become like let's say like #1 in the world, or did you eventually hit a point where you're like, you know what, I'm okay with how I am right now, time to really just focus on commentary and doing stuff like that? Or am I seeing two different complete wrong stories?
Of course, I think I wanted to see how far I could go, how good I could be. Mm-hmm. I think everyone definitely has that. But, at that point, I'm out of college, trying to figure out how to balance, the rest of my life with Smash, something, that took me far many years afterwards to really figure out. And, when you're working that terrible job you hate, you can't go to tournaments anymore, there's no such thing as net play. Because of your work schedule, you can't get friendlies in with people. You kind of realize that, other things that, you're going to take a back seat. And I was one of those people who, if I wasn't in practice, if I wasn't practicing consistently, why try and put that effort out? So I guess I came kind of, I'd say, jaded with my own performances, and realizing that at this point, nothing is really going to change in terms of work schedule and things like that. So, I'll go to a tournament when I can. I'm not going to be happy about how I play, but maybe there's other ways I can contribute.
I think that's a really good mindset though going into it. When you can admit that stuff to yourself, I think that's kind of like the best first steps you can take. And then I think you went in the right direction, because then of course you moved more into commentary. But before I even say you moved, at that time when you are still considered a player, did you ever associate with both, or did you not start commentary until you had given up as, well, not given up, I don't mean to say that, but you had stopped being a player at that point?
No, I mean, I definitely did a lot of my initial commentary when I was still active as a player, just because of how things were. We were inspired by, as funny as things kind of go in cycles, but Waffles and Phil said they heard, I think, Scar and someone do commentary at an East Coast tournament. They started doing it, and of course we heard Waffles and Phil do it, and we're just like, man, those guys are good and all, but they're talking about those guys out west. They're talking about Zoo and Sound Spectre and Lucky and Mango. Why is no one saying that about J-Man? Why is no one saying that about Hacks? So on and so forth. So we kind of, myself and if you know him now as Ladies Love LLDL, Ladies Love Daniel Logan, back in his Chain Ace days, he and I would bring recording setups, and we would say, hey, West Coast has all that stuff going on. Here's what's going on out east. Here's what's going on. And one day, brought my laptop, probably a Dazzle at that point, and like $6 USB mic from Radio Shack. Started commentating, and that's how it began.
That just the mention of the Dazzle capture cam brings a tear to my eye. But God, that's a humble beginning right there. I never would have known that. That's beautiful.
I mean, that was technology at the time,
No, of course. It's just so funny to just think back on like how much we've grown since, and how like even, I don't know, just even locals are just trying to avoid the cheapest stuff, but yet sometimes we're forced to. Did you ever have more? Well, not did you ever. Do you have, when you were active, did you have more fun commentating, or did you have more fun playing? And I'll say this is back when you're a player, when you were still playing the game more regularly.
Even today, I have more fun playing.
Really?
There's something about being a player that it's that adrenaline, that drive, you can drive home, salty from commentary and thinking, I was wrong on this frame data, or, I didn't hit this point, or I didn't say X, Y, and Z. But as a player, those losses, they stick with you a lot longer and a lot harder. So that drive that comes from being a player, and even just playing the game, it's a completely different experience. So I'll always prefer being a player to being a commentator.
I was not expecting that, but that's amazing. I'm glad you said that, because I would almost rather hear that someone that does commentate the game that I love so well enjoys playing it more than they even like speaking on it. I think that speaks a lot for the personality. So that's pretty cool. Is there a favorite? I want to ask both of these. Is there a favorite set that you've ever commentated, as well as if you were to think back on the millions of sets you've played with all the beautiful people across this wonderful country of ours, if there is one set that stands out to you as your favorite that you played in, so one person that maybe you've played against and you were just like, this set was the most important set in the world that I had ever played in, what would it be?
Honestly, both of those, thinking on it, they're pretty easy answers. For commentary, I think this was Apex 2014. Now I'm actually second guessing myself, because I'm like, well, that set was fun too. But Apex 20, I believe 14, was AMSA versus Kage.
14,
in the exhibition, not even the Salty Sweet, but an exhibition. And it was, I guess, funny enough, I didn't even want to take credit, but I ended up walking around Evo 2013 when I wasn't doing commentary, and I see this Japanese Yoshi player playing against Mewtwo King, and I'm like watching him intently, and that was Amsa's basically coming out party to the national or to the international scene. Mm-hmm. He became a player to watch after that weekend instantly, and he's still today. He's probably in my top 3 favorite players, but we can go into that later on.
Sure.
And not many people playing Yoshi at the time. You had Vector Man out in AZ. Mm-hmm. I can't think of too many out on the East Coast, if any, at this point right now. At least at that point in time.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a lot of prep beforehand, just because it's obscure character at that point, very obscure character.
Definitely. And
Kage, who I've known for, at that point, oh man, Kage I've known at that point since like 2008, 2009.
Oh my god!
I'm trying to think, because I know he definitely spent. Him and the Montreal crew stayed at my apartment once for a Spock tournament, which was probably my favorite local series. Shouts to Scar for that. But those two, I feel like were, in terms of commentary, what I tried to do the best at. I wasn't really, I always said I was more of a storyteller than a commentator. So saying, why sets matter, player histories, things like that. I feel like I did that very well with that set. And of course, all that additional studying to know, some of Yoshi's tendencies and quirks. I think that was probably my favorite set to commentate. Beyond like like an Evo top 8 set or something like that. Like there's a lot of sets I love, but that one definitely sticks out to me. Beyond that, as a player, there's 2 that come to mind. Or actually 3. One, the first time I beat Eggum in a money match, just because it was like, okay, there might be some hope for me yet in this game.
Right.
Second one is going to be against PC. Some old friendlies that we played, I think at OTGs maybe? I don't remember where. Maybe at his place, but it's PC. You think Melee, you think East Coast, it's PC Chris. Like, that's everyone has a picture of PC on their wall, basically. And the third, and I don't even think I've told many people this, but when I think of Philly, of course Scar, because the way he played the game was so breakneck and smash mouth. Like, it's still to this day inspirational. Funny saying that, almost 10 years to the day of I Killed Mufasa. Right. But Scar definitely was one of those players that, never beat in tournament, but, I learned so much from in general. And, just a tidbit for the podcast ears only. I Killed Mufasa 2. There's a trailer, and there's a Falco getting demolished. I'm not saying it was me, oh, no. But I'm not saying it wasn't me. So, shouts to Scar. That was like, those sets against Scar, like that. I still remember that night going to his apartment and walking away like I just got bodied. But I'm coming back soon because I'm having too much fun with this.
That's utterly beautiful. I can still think back on the first time I watched I Killed Mufasa, and I told myself, I'm a Falcon main now. I'm getting the tattoo on my leg because a friend owes me a free tattoo. I'm sticking with it. And then a year later, I kind of just took the N off of Falcon and became a Falco. But nonetheless, that video was and forever will be. That series will forever be so inspirational. At least in my opinion, and I think even you would back this up in terms of those that are Falcon players. You can't be a Falcon player or someone that can appreciate Falcon without loving those videos.
It's either I killed Mufasa or, you know, it was a rivalry back in the day, you know, even with their combo videos. It's I kill Mufasa or Silence.
Oh, right.
Silence, I mean, I remember, I think at a major, I feel like this might have been like one of the Apexes or even one of the ROMs, and like at least 3 or 4 people had like their ringtone set to the song from Silence, because that was, you know, it was inspirational.
They're beautiful. They're works of art, honestly. I see these like video titles now for a lot of different combo videos. I think the one that always comes to my mind, GR Smash made that video called I think it was like M2K's Marth is a Thing of Beauty or something along those lines, and it has this beautiful orchestral music just playing in the background as M2K's just doing his thing. He's just playing Marth, and those type of videos that can not only encapsulate the character but the player, those videos are honestly works of art. And I Killed Mufasa, the silent videos, even Mango's old combo videos, those define them in such amazing and beautiful ways that just I'll forever be so disappointed I didn't get into this game sooner. Like it always just gives you that feeling, you know?
Oh yeah.
So that's awesome. Shouts to Scar. Shouts out to everyone in the stream that just caught that tidbit of information. But we're not gonna say who it was, because that's for you to think about. It's one of those to be continue endings. So going a little bit more in depth on the whole commentary thing, was there ever someone that you would consider your favorite commentary partner, and why is it D1?
Oh man. So, you know, East Coast, working in the city, very often, you know, we would go to a fest after work or, you know, something like that. And, you know, of course, D would go to the No Johns every so often. And I think it was really after Papa John, shouts to Papa John, who is basically like one of the hidden bosses of New York to this day, the man who drinks 1 million Monster cans a day. He used to throw fests in his old apartment, and it would be, you know, like Reno, Milk Tea, D1, myself, DJ Bentizi, Alucard might show up, OTG on occasion. But I'd say, you know, through those fests, especially since, you know, tournaments weren't as often as they are now, you know, the importance of the Smash Fest can't really be understated at that point. But, you know, the other side of the coin is not having a tournament atmosphere, that more casual atmosphere, you know, that whole New York crew became, you know, good friends. And D was one of those people who, you know, stuck out. He was like, you know, I've heard comparisons to like the Wu-Tang Clan, and if, you know, I was the Jizza, I was monotone, but, you know, the lyrics were always there. And D1 was like the method man, you know, someone who his delivery was always on point. He always made you feel something with it. So, you know, I feel like that's why we meshed well as commentary partners. But, you know, it was always conversational with us. You know, it's always, you know, two friends talking. It's not about, you know, I'm sitting with this person I never commentated with before. I have to try to figure out how their style is. It's just, you know, I know how this person is as an individual, so it's gonna work no matter what.
That's everything I could have asked for in an answer and more. That's beautiful. So shouts to D1. Amazing commentary, another amazing personality. But we can only handle so much on this show before someone just probably starts crying. So we're gonna start, and I know those that are used to the show are kind of more used to a like a categorized stream or a show where like things are kind of like put into these sections and things kind of make a little bit more sense. There is so much that I've just kind of wanted to talk to Prog about, that this whole list is kind of messy and it's meshy and it's weird, but hopefully you guys can still enjoy it. And the first thing I wanted to touch on was going back to EVO 2013, the scariest year of, well, not the scariest year, but the scariest moment of Smash, being pushed so hard to get this donation drive done, which in the first place, how amazing was that to do? How amazing was it to raise over $90,000 for breast cancer and get our game on that list? How amazing was that?
You know, everything happens for a reason. This was 2 months prior to that, was I think ROM 5, when, you know, the EVO donation drive was announced. And of course there was that big kerfluffle, so to speak, with the top 4 at that tournament and bracket switching and things of that nature. And you know, I was there on commentary for it. Scar was in the building. I think Cactar was there too, and we were like, you know what, we need to talk about this stuff, because, you know, we can't, at this point we fought too hard for our game to live, not thrive, but to live. And for people to keep playing it, for, you know, anything to be ruined by, you know, some players, you know, trying to bend the community to their will. And that's how MIM started. So of course, you know, not too long after, Smashboards is constantly under denial of service attacks, I believe, and we basically ended up as a hub for basically that drive, you know. And it was rough. It was really rough. You know, we're trying to constantly figure out, you know, we're all smashers at that point, and, you know, we're just getting out of college, or, you know, still in. How can we raise this money? Things like that. And it was wild, coming up with a lot of ideas, trying to figure out exactly what we can do to keep neck and neck with Skullgirls. You know, what's going on with Super Turbo and things of that nature. And it was tense. It was tense, but, you know, it's one of those experiences in my life I'll never forget, hopefully.
That's totally understandable. And then the moment that the game gets accepted and you guys are all in, was there, I want to imagine just this giant sheet on your back just finally gets removed, and everyone just takes a big sigh and applauds into the air. Something like that. I want to imagine that happened, but I could be wrong, and people could have just been like, "Oh, sweet, let's go."
I mean, the archive from MIM is out there somewhere, and you know, it's funny to say, you know, that's Smash history now, but yeah, you know, it was huge. You know, we were definitely the underdog. You know, we constantly heard, you know, why Smash, and, you know, I guess, you know, all these years later, we've shown why.
Definitely. Well, I'm gonna definitely do some searching for that. I'll put that in the description when the VOD is uploaded, everyone. So definitely take a look at that. And also another thing, if you've never seen it, which can't recommend it enough, there's a speech that you gave through, I want to say Skype, but it might have just been just a webcam and you, of just you talking about on your way home from work or wherever it might have been, just hearing the news that Nintendo said, no, we can't stream it, and just your reaction to that, and just saying, you know, everyone, we did what we could, we're not going to stop, like, we're going to keep pursuing it. And I can't recommend enough, if you haven't seen that video, go and watch it. Another situation, it'll be in the link, or the link will be in the description, so make sure you check that out. And it's also amazing to note that for EVO 2013, we still got, I think, what's the number I have here? 700. We still got 709 entrants, which was the 4th highest amount of entrants out of the 9 games that were there. That's insane.
Yep, and that was the largest tournament to date, I believe.
That's insane. Like, holy moly. That's so many people going to play this beautiful game. So anyone that was ever a part of that donation drive, you forever deserve like a 24/7 pat on the back for that, because that's amazing, and that's history that'll never get erased. The next thing I want to bring up, so I know that YungD0nut, Hungrybox, Zero, I think even PPMD, there was a Smash Bros. Invitational hosted by Nintendo. They had you come out to that, correct?
Yep.
And this was for the announcement of, or was this for the announcement of Smash 4, or just the release, having you guys test it out? What was the overview of this event?
It was, I believe, maybe 2 or 3 months prior to release, and I guess it was kind of Nintendo saying, hey, this is, we have our eyes on the competitive scene, so if you all want to help showcase the game, by all means. And I don't think many people would not have jumped on that opportunity, just because after all of the issues to date with that, kind of seeing maybe a bit of an olive branch being extended, it meant the world. So
I gotcha. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not. In Smash 4, as in I think every Smash game, there's the random tag generator thing that can just put up random names for you in the tag creator. Did you know that Prog is one that can be created in Smash 4?
Yeah, actually, I was told that by a friend of mine not too long ago.
Oh, damn it. Well, I was kind of hoping that could be my thing. Damn it. Well,
it's not to catch me off guard.
Yeah, it probably does. Well, when you were told about this, were you shocked at all? Did they not ever tell you, it'd kind of be hard for them to just randomly be like, oh, by the way, Prog, we're putting your tag in this, if you're okay with it. Did it shock you at all? Did anyone say anything? I wasn't
expecting it. No one kind of told me ahead of time, so it was just like, oh, that's a surprise.
Definitely. I'm always wondering how they go about that name tag thing, and if they did it on purpose or not. But I think it's a cute little momentum for you. So the next thing is the FGC, the whole fighting games community. You've been someone that not only was a part of Smash, you were a part of other FGCs as well. What other games did you associate with back in the day?
So even before I got into Melee, I think he was playing Street Fighter Alpha at the time, maybe Alpha 2. And he kind of was my main introduction to traditional fighting games. So the first fighting game I played was actually Virtua Fighter 4. And I guess delving into, I'm getting into Melee, and the Temple were grinding hard. There were we weren't the only ones bringing setups. So the gaming lounge, we'd have our CRT and Melee going on. There'd be a Third Strike setup, which eventually be replaced by Street Fighter 4. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I remember Demon Hyo came to play a couple of times, and he's one of the most mentioned East Coast players. And let's see,
excuse me,
a couple of arcades as well in Philly. I didn't really delve into it too much in New York, but I definitely messed around with a couple other games at that point. Entered Evo for Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Street Fighter 4. I think I entered Street Fighter 5 as well, but I wasn't able to participate. But I've messed with my fair share of games.
Was there any one in particular that just stood out to you in being the favorite, if not the second favorite fighting game you ever played? Obviously taking the seat next to Smash, but
probably Marvel vs. Capcom 3. A lot of things overlap with Smash in terms of player base. A lot of Smashers moved or dived into that game. Alucard, Forward, D1 did fairly well at Evo as well in that game. A lot of people played it, and just in terms of how the presentation is, it's still to date one of my favorite fighting games and one of my favorite games to move in, which I guess is also something that attracted me with Melee. You know, having that freedom in your mobility is huge for me. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, yeah, I'd say it's probably number one. But as a spectator, probably Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Oh. You know, you talk about the importance of commentators and things of that nature, and you know, there's a lot of people I look up to when it comes to commentary and fighting games. Yipes, Chris Matrix are definitely two of my favorites when I'm watching. So Yipes is, you know, I'm glad that he's still doing it, and I'm glad he does it weekly, because you know, I'm happy to sit home every Wednesday night and listen to him talk about fighting games for hours on end. So,
did you ever do commentary for another fighter game, or were you strictly Melee?
I've done some commentary for Marvel 3. I did it at Bum, shout to Bum, of course, another New York legend, at his birthday. He holds a birthday tournament every year. Did it at his birthday once, and actually, I think the last set that I've commentated in recent memory, period, was at the EVO 2017 Salty Sweet for Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. And I don't know if you might end up being a little biased towards MVC3 at this point, but if you were to recommend an actual, well, just an FGC game to someone that's just a Smash player, what would you recommend?
I have a couple different recommendations, depending on, I guess, what attracted you to Smash. If it's things like, you know, character familiarity, attachment to characters, and things of that nature, you know, Dragon Ball FighterZ just came out, and it's very, to me, you know, as someone who grew up watching, you know, DBZ and was trying to get home for Toonami every day as a middle and high school kid, you know, that was big seeing that finally come to fruition. Mm-hmm. So Dragon Ball FighterZ, Fighters, the Z is silent there, not silent, but you know what I mean. And beyond that, Skullgirls. You know, Skullgirls is one of those games that I think a lot of people, when they get into fighters, they kind of don't realize the depth that's there, or it's so difficult of a learning curve. I think that Skullgirls definitely shows both of those things, but also in terms of getting into a fighting game. And a lot of these games kind of have subpar tutorials, if there's a tutorial at all. I think Skullgirls definitely is a great way into the fighting game scene. So
awesome. Well, that's honestly really good. I know a friend of mine just got that Dragon Ball FighterZ game too, trying to figure it out. It's so different playing traditional fighting games versus Smash. It's just such a different feel and a different look. But then every time I watch like anyone that's even in the Smash community play it, they find all these things to relate to, and I'm still scratching my head, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult transition trying to move from one to the other. But after a while, you start to see the similarities, and you start to see your mindset kind of shift from playing one to the other. I remember, this is when I was active, but I was playing Street Fighter 4, and I was taking a bit of a break from Melee at that point, and I came back to Melee. And my style, you know, I was a lot more patient. I was a lot better at finding holes and figuring things out that way than I was when I was just solely a Melee player. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I always recommend playing multiple fighters or dabbling with them, just because sometimes you might not want to go, I guess, too heavy into them. You might not want to make them your main game. Right. But sometimes it's just so refreshing for your mindset, and just opens your mind to different things and different fighters, and might help you expand your main game.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, definitely going to take a look into that. And as we're looking into that, I want to look more into why you have such a great vernacular. You talked about it actually a little bit ago when when we were talking about just commentary, how you say that you're more of a storyteller. You go off on these stories, and you're able to give such perspectives and viewpoints that I don't think many commentators even to this day do. Is this something that maybe you've studied in school, or have you always been this way? Something along those lines.
It's pretty much luck. My dad was an English teacher. I was a English major in college. First introduction in public speaking actually was as a radio host. I was doing college radio. I hosted and engineered a show, and it's basically how I got into, I guess, that whole mindset of how to frame things for an audience. So that's basically how it came to fruition.
Did you ever take time to perhaps like study how a person would commentate something, or even now that you're mentioning this radio idea, did you ever study other radio hosts to understand their speech techniques or things along that line? Or as you said in the beginning of this, it's just luck, and you're just natural at this?
I mean, I wouldn't say I studied, but I would say, even as a commentator, I'm always going to be a fan and a spectator as well. Mm-hmm. So, I hear things from other people, like, of course, a lot of stuff inspired by the WWE, Jim Ross, who will make you feel something. And that was, my goal as a commentator, to make you feel something. Yipes, make you feel something. Seth Killian, James Chen, David, so on and so forth. I wanted, that kind of visceral response. And I guess that's how I kind of framed it. So
that makes pretty good sense. And so I guess what you could say is you had a very diverse, what do I want to say? Like you were exposed to a lot of different commentating styles and ways to express yourself on a mic to begin with, and you were able to pick up on it pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, this we'll probably talk about later on, but when I first got into commentary, it was a lot more laid back. No one really expected commentary to be a thing. It was few and far between at a lot of majors, or not majors, but at tournaments in general. So it was a lot more lax. But as times changed, and especially toward 2013, so when we're realizing that, hey, our game is going to be on a big stage, we need to represent and show that, this isn't just a hobby. So, yeah.
Well, we can even talk about that now, because that's a really good point. The whole, what was the first tournament, if you remember, that you ever, or I think you might have already said this, the first tournament that you ever commentated, I think you said it was like something among friends in like a fest or something like that, or maybe I'm already mistaken.
It would have been a No Johns, which was a tournament series that Alucard, host of the ROM series, hosted. Originally in Fairlawn, New Jersey, then moved up to Nanuet, probably the Nanuet era. That was the first time I did commentary. It was just because, I was out of the tournament. My laptop was being used as, one of the recording setups. So I have nothing else to do. I have to drive home, someone from New York City anyway, if not 2 or 3 people. Mm-hmm. May as well stick around and talk about the game for, it's either that or play money matches. And kind of want to go to Five Guys afterwards, so I don't want to risk it.
Five Guys is too good to miss. So what was it about? Well, let's say this. Was that video, or not that video, that tournament, is that what made you realize that you really want to start doing commentary, or what was it that eventually just pulled the plug on, you're gonna do commentary from now on, and that's gonna be that?
Well, we kind of mentioned earlier, but when my time as a player was kind of wrapping up and I wanted to get involved in other ways, I did a couple different things. Commentary would be my my regular thing. Mm-hmm. But I did a couple of trailers for tournaments. I did WTF hacks, that combo video. God. Mm-hmm. That was different ways to, I guess, kind of stay involved even if I couldn't play. So commentary was one of them.
did you found yourself enjoying it more and more, or how did you feel about it? Because I know, as we talked about more towards the beginning, you were saying how you genuinely enjoyed being a player over the commentator, which still is true to this day. But did you still find a lot of enjoyment in doing this commentary, and you wanted to pursue it further and perhaps even commentate something like, I don't know, top 8 at Evo, like stuff like that?
I mean, I knew, for example, when I was doing commentary that, I wanted to, of course, if it's something you're doing and, you're not playing, you're not entering, you kind of want to be involved in other ways. And, if I'm going to a tournament, there's an opportunity, yeah, I definitely want to commentate. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Apex 2010 that I didn't get to commentate. And, I guess I was on the rise at that point. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm going to keep working at it. I'm going to keep finding my niche, my style, and hone it. And, I got lucky that I think, I don't remember how, but mm-hmm. somehow my first major was Pound 5, with that PPMD set. So
that's a hell of a first major to commentate too. That's amazing. Then let's see, moving on a bit here. So the two most recent tournaments that you went to commentate were Smash Rivalries and Bad Moon Rising. Both, in my opinion, had very, very historic moments. Wizzy's insane pop-off at Rivalries, along with various upsets throughout that bracket. And then we have Bad Moon Rising, which featured the return of our beloved PPMD for all of doubles, which was amazing. Of course, everyone was hyped, but we all were still waiting on that singles. Let's put it one way: how enjoyable were those coming back to the scene to get to commentate some more? How enjoyable was that?
Smash Rivalries was really fun for me because, you think about how long a lot of us that were on commentary that weekend have been in the scene. Yet, sets that, we hadn't really had the chance to commentate too much together. I mean, for example, ROM 3, when Waffles finally came out to East Coast, he and D1, I think, did some commentary there. And I was typing play-by-play because the streaming was so new that we didn't have a streamer on day 2, mm-hmm. So I was typing play-by-play the entire day.
Wow! So
I think that Smash Rivalries was big for me just because it was, hey, I'm commentating with these guys again, or even for the first time, and even alongside that, I feel like a lot of rivalries have been lost in Smash. Just by the nature of how it's grown as a business. It's a lot difficult to have that kind of blood feud mm-hmm. With someone if you're seeing them every 3 weeks, every month. So, it was good seeing that, and even, the crew battle format, things like that, they pop up here and there, but, it's always good seeing crew battle. Meanwhile, Bad Moon Rising actually... shouts to Brian Buckley, if you know him from Recursion. Mm-hmm. The dude's one of the hardest working people in Smash that no one really pays attention to or gives credit to. But he's one of those dudes that I'd say that people need to invest in him, whether that's money or time, because he's a great guy and he's definitely got his heart in the right place when it comes to this community. And I feel like as time has gone on, again, as a business. There's a lot of people who kind of their priorities have shifted, mm-hmm. but he's always had the community in mind. Basically, he hit me up and said, "Hey, I know that you're not too far away. We need a commentator this weekend. You want to come down to NC and do it?" And I know a lot of people. There was like that issue with Smash 4 saying, if I don't get paid or whatever for this event, I'm not going to go or not going to do it. They needed a commentator. North Carolina, to me, as strange as it sounds, is one of my favorite scenes. Them, Pittsburgh, all those groups that used to come to the ROM series, do those long drives. I feel like there's a certain kinship with them. So
you build a bond in those situations,
Of course, yeah. So he hit me up and said, "Yeah, we need someone." And I said, "Let me know when, and I'll drive down." So it was definitely a way to. Even more important to me was see some old friends. Loser, that was supposedly his last tournament. We'll see if he sticks to that. Everlasting Yayas, who a lot of people don't know anymore, but the dude is one of the. When it comes to trash talk, he was definitely one of the most prolific trash talkers in Smash history.
With a name like that, he better be.
Extremely talented Fox player from eons ago. Of course, PPMD. And again, a lot of the interesting parts for me is seeing how all these teams have kind of developed over the past few years since the boom. So seeing that in action is really cool as well.
That's awesome. Did you, by chance, get to even meet up with PP and Lozar at Bad Moon, or unfortunately no?
Oh yeah, I talk to PP fairly often. Actually, I went to the Fall Classic last year, which is a traditional fighting game tournament, and I stayed at PP's place. We had a pretty good talk.
Well, that's awesome.
So yeah, I talked to PP maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, just checking on him. But it's a good friend.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I got to talk to him, got to talk to Loser, and it's always cool seeing all of us were so young 10 years ago, however long it was, and here we are still brought together by the same game. So it's kind of cool seeing that in action.
It's a beautiful thing. You don't even have to be, you don't got to be subtle with it. You can genuinely, it is a beautiful thing. It's connections and friendships that you get to keep and maintain throughout freaking almost 20 years. We're almost at 20 years of this game. Like, come on, it's a beautiful thing, and that's awesome, and I'm really glad. Was there anyone in particular at Smash Rivalries that you got to meet up with as well? Because obviously there were a ton of big names there, but at that point, that crew, especially the last few years, I see them, every month. But I think that one, since it had been a few months since I've gone to an event, or I'm usually, like, for example, if I go to EVA, I'm usually swamped. I'm doing commentary, I'm doing interviews, I'm doing 3 different things. I don't really get a chance to hang out, but the way that tournament was kind of formatted, I got to hang out with people. I got to see different things. So that was really cool for me. That's awesome. Well, congrats on that, and very glad that you got to catch up with even those you did. So the next thing I do want to talk about, which is a rather unknown thing, is you met Daniel Radcliffe at some point, didn't you?
Long story short, so basically, funny as things are, I do a video editing now, and my first reel was a combo video I made, and they were like, "Yeah, we need a PA, we'll hire you." So I worked as a PA in New York for 5 years, and I met my share of people. I met Daniel Radcliffe, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart. I can't remember dude's name, but what's his face?
Yeah, that
I can't remember his name, but Archer from Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
Can't remember his name. See? But yeah, I met a few people here and there.
That's pretty awesome. My follow up to that, which I feel like now is just gonna be a not so yes, was if you still keep in touch, but
oh hell no.
Damn it, that would have been beautiful. We got Daniel Radcliffe out to one of these tournaments. Oh my god.
I mean, it's kind of funny seeing, who who pops up, for different things in the scene. Had another, one of the people from Harry Potter is a huge Smash 4 fan, I know. A couple people from 21 Pilots love Hugs, which is kind of cool.
Oh, no kidding.
Wow. Yeah, weird stuff. But hey, crossover.
I feel like I can't remember. It's one of the Zach and Cody twins. I think D1 even interviewed.
Yeah, he did commentary at not Zenith. Maybe it was Zenith, but it was a tournament in Brooklyn, the Spring Fighter venue, which was, I can't remember where that is right now, but he definitely, Dylan Sprouse did commentary.
Yeah, that's it. That to me was also amazing. It sucks you don't see these guys at those tournaments anymore. I mean, obviously, like they're kind of big names in the TV industry, but I mean that would be so amazing to see. And I would also love to see I'd just love to see the tags that they would come up with, Like what would... I
mean, Evo a couple years ago, I can't remember the dude's name, but he was one of the American Idol. It wasn't one. I think it was one of the finals. I don't think he won.
No.
He entered.
Yeah, Taylor something. I want to say.
It sounds right. And then, God, what's her name? Can't think of her, but she walked around Evo with her kid who entered, wearing a Vega mask the entire weekend. So it's kind of mainstream. I mean, Xavier Woods, Kenny Omega go to CEO and things like that. So it's everywhere.
Definitely on point there. Taylor Hicks, that's who it is. Yes. He was actually the winner of season 5 of American Idol, and he tied for 257th at Evo 2013. That's sick. That's amazing. Well, as much as I wish we could always catch up with these big names, we forever have to move on. So you retired back in this is Evo 2014, or maybe a little after that, where I know you gave your speech. You received the award from the Evo staff on, I think, I can't remember verbatim, but it was like most supportive and most helpful in the FGC, I think, that year. I think it went straight to you. And you gave a speech about how we're not done here. We're going to keep coming back. You all are the reasons that I'm here and the reasons that I do what I'm doing. And then you were retired for about a year or so, and then you came back to commentate for Apex 2015, Pound 2016. How did you feel about that retirement in that time being? How did it feel not commentating things for a while? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I kind of talked about it a bit earlier, but trying to figure out that balance between Smash and everything else. Mm-hmm. I had some health issues at the time, and I kind of put that all on the back burner because, hey, Melee, it's a pretty good game, and years later now, I look at myself like an idiot. Like, why did I do that? Plenty of people were there to carry the torch. Why did I kind of put myself at risk? But it actually was probably for the best I walked away at that point. Mm-hmm. Couple of months afterwards, my grandfather passed away, and it was like a sign just saying, you're putting all this time into this game and into this community. What about everyone else in your life? How are you doing with maintaining that? And funny enough, years later, now I'm like, well, I can't be too upset because these are people that I hopefully grow old with. Mm-hmm. So it's probably for the best I walked away at that point. But seeing people, do commentary, things like that, couldn't be upset at all. You kind of hope that at some point someone's going to be able to take that spot. And there are plenty of people who are capable of it and still are. So I was more than happy to see, a lot of people step up.
and even during this time, you may have walked away from commentary, but correct me if I'm wrong, you were still active within Smashboards. You would keep up with posts, you would comment every now and again. I think you even made some threads here and there. I remember seeing one about microphone management, or just common etiquette on that subject.
Oh yeah, I think that was of course at that time people wanted to know my thoughts and commentary and things like that. So I posted a couple of threads on my thoughts and commentary like that. Of course, my worldview and view and commentary has shifted greatly since then. But it was just how can I stay involved? I would post on Reddit. I think I was a mod there for a while. Still trying to stay involved, even if I can't be as involved directly.
Well, definitely could see it changing some minds. I know, and again, this is something I'll link in the description for those that haven't seen it. I know on the long post about your retirement, you could scroll through that comment section, and almost every single comment is just like, thank you for everything you've done. Sorry to see you go, but can't wait to see you again. Like, so much praise towards you, and just so much like understanding and acceptance and ready to see the next step. I think I agree with you, and I think what you did was for the best, and I'm glad it worked out for you in the end. And at the very least, I think everyone's glad to see that you're still a personality and you're still somewhere within the scene, and you would even spend almost an hour or so talking to some guy on a stream about Smash. I think that definitely makes a lot of people happy. So cheers to you being back, and we'll always appreciate you being here. I think only a few more things to talk about here. Last Stock Legends is something that I did want to talk to you a little bit about. On your Twitter, it's quoted that you do the audio-visual work. In every episode, you're put in as the director. Was this something you originally came up with, or were you with a group of friends and you decided, guys, let's start this, I don't know if the term company is correct, but let's start this thing and let's see what we can do with it. And you guys started making some really interesting episodes and really interesting moments that I'm a big fan of, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
I'm trying to think back to, I guess, how it originated. I feel like it was just an idea that had been floated around. Like myself, Zoo, Papa Paint, who of course is like the genius of Battlefy, no question. And at some point we were like, no one's doing this, but why don't we try and do this? Why don't we try and tell our stories about Melee? And what got us into the scene? What are these big moments? Because the biggest thing that we wanted to get across was that there's always more to a tournament set than just what happens on stream. You don't know what's going through a player's mind, what's happening, what's going on in their real life that affects it. There's all these different things, and people don't forget those things. Especially a big victory, something that defines you as a player. People don't forget those moments. So we could tell those stories. That was what we set out to do. So I reached out to Papa Paint. Zoo was like, hey, I know a couple of people who might be interested, and we asked for a couple of people through the MIM Facebook group who wanted to get involved. Tish, again, who for his photography, became involved as well, and we got to do some really cool things.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely took off for a while there. I know a lot of the big stories that were coming from there. For example, the Ken Bomb Soldier got to go way more in depth. People got to learn more about that. Myself in particular, I learned a lot about that. I definitely felt like there were a lot of things missing from that story that I never know about until then. The Kage Mango is just another one that just kind of comes off the head, in just terms of things that I think about. And it was definitely a really cool situation to see grow. And glad it exists. Is there any work coming soon that we can expect, or is it all like it's top secret? I don't know what you can say or give away.
Coming soon, definitely not. We should have an update soon on season 2, hopefully before the end of the month.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you heard it here first. Very excited to see how that goes. We got the new documentary hopefully coming out soon, and now we got season 2 of LSL coming out soon. So stay tuned for that, people. You gotta know these things. And I guess before I ask my last question, I was looking at Twitch chat a little earlier, and I did manage to snag a question from a good buddy of mine, Codeman. He asks, do you ever see Melee making it to a televised broadcast?
Hard to say, because my heart says no, just because of trying to gain all the rights and things of that nature. It would be extremely difficult. In addition, if you're thinking about ratings, it's such a niche title at this point, which isn't a bad thing. We've carved our niche and people love it. But it's kind of difficult to say if there would be enough interest. But I look at a lot of other fighters that do get on things like E-League, and it's like, there's definitely a market for it, and just those other games being there, state that people will watch it. We've seen Smash 4 on Disney XD. They did Street Fighter as well. I don't know if, however, if the licenses for broadcast are going to be attainable for Melee at this point. So that's kind of why I don't think it would happen. But at the same time, I've experienced many things in this community that I didn't think would happen, and lo and behold, they happened. So can't ever say never.
Fair enough. I sure as hell hope we do one day. I think it would be a great thing for the scene, a great thing to see, especially if we can get Smash 4 on Disney. Come on, we could at least get like Melee on freaking Comedy Central or something. I don't know. You got these what are they called? The Robo or I can't remember what they are. It's
the robot fights?
No, I don't mean like the actual televised show. I mean the new like they've replaced analog cable with something that I can't remember the name of right now. Oh my god, I feel like it starts with an R. But it's like every TV now needs to have like internet or something like that, in order to like connect to things. And I know like even the one that I have to have at my home back in Albany, it can connect to YouTube perfectly. So I'm just waiting for a Twitch app to come out, and then you basically can watch it on your TV. It just gonna come down to
the roundabout way.
Yeah. So who knows? I hope one day we can. Great question, Cody. Thank you for submitting it. And the last thing I have for you is genuinely you've never really left the community. Like you always were around. You never really fully left. But in your eyes, when even you took this retirement, and you can say that you weren't a part of the community, was there ever anything that just you were able to say, you know what, I miss this. I genuinely miss this.
It's the people, without a question. I said as a commentator, my goal is to be a storyteller, and I have so many stories about a lot of these people. It's people's definitely what keeps me around to this day. It's just weird and silly and dumb thinking about all the friendships that I've made through this community, and they're the ones that are worth fighting for, and that's what keeps me around. Even if I don't commentate a set ever again, I'm still gonna keep in touch with some of these folks. So,
and that's a beautiful thing, and I'm sure every last one of them appreciate the hell out of it. And I appreciate the hell out of you for coming on today, getting to spend an hour and a half of your time talking about one of the greatest games to ever exist in this entire universe. Prog, I thank you so much for coming on. If there's anything you want to shout out, any events maybe that you know of coming up, anything you're a part of, literally anything to do with you that you'd just like to plug and get out there, now's your time, my friend.
No cheap plugs from this go around. Basically, instead, biggest advice to everyone out there is, do you. Do what makes you special. Do what makes you you. What makes you unique. There's a lot of people trying to fit into certain categories, and they're not. That's not them. Do you. That's who people fall in love with. So be yourself.
That's awesome. Well, I thank you so much for all your time today. You can always, if you don't already, and it'd be embarrassing if you're not, if you don't follow this legend on Twitter, you can follow him at Progducto. Again, everything for social media will be in the description of the VOD when it is uploaded. For about the millionth time, thank you for coming on. Thank you to everyone in the chat that asked questions, that's been around for all of this story timing and all of that. I hope you guys have a fantastic night. This has been The Bakery. You all have a fantastic evening. We'll see you next time.